you well. Wanted to do another video that adds a little bit of some background history behind some of the amazing locations in Africa that IShowSpeed has been discovering and experiencing. Just for some research that I've done, I believe there's a lot of wisdom, education, and lessons that can be learned from some of these trips. I know a lot of times it's hard to get certain education out when you're traveling. You only have so much time in the day. You have certain management teams, marketing teams that have certain bucket list adventures and items that you have to attend to. So it can become difficult to really elaborate on certain histories and really big gems that are being revealed in this Africa tour. So I just wanted to I've been doing an iShow Speed series for some time and really value and appreciate the work of this young man. So just wanted to kind of add in on some history behind Botswana and diamonds. This discussion around value. I think there's a lot of wisdom here. So it says here Botswana is a landlocked nation in southern Africa whose modern history is often cited as one of the continent's most distinctive developmental stories. Formerly the Bechuanaland Protectorate, Botswana gained independence in 1966 with limited infrastructure, a small educated workforce, and an economy largely centered on cattle and subsistence activity. With little colonial investment to inherit, Botswana's early leaders emphasized long term planning, strong institutions, and fiscal restraint, choices that would later define the country's trajectory. The discovery of diamonds in 1967 fundamentally reshaped Botswana's economic foundations. Rather than surrendering control to foreign extraction alone, Botswana negotiated a partnership model that ensures significant state ownership and revenue participation in diamond mining. Over time, diamonds became the backbone of national development, financing roads, schools, healthcare, and public services. We'll go into the background of this deal and also some of the cost that came with this deal that was completely out of Botswana's control, but I thought it was a really brilliant strategy on Botswana's part to participate into this contract that they made. So we'll go into detail on that. I don't have that much time to have clients. Over time, diamonds became the backbone of national development, financing roads, schools, healthcare, and public services. This approach allowed Botswana to avoid many of the pitfalls that plagued other resource rich states and positioned it as a rare case of sustained growth tied to transparent governance. I don't know if you guys remember, IShowSpeed visited Botswana and was very surprised how the locals could not purchase diamonds. And there's certain reasons tied behind that. So we'll go into this. Culturally and historically, Botswana holds a unique place in Africa. It is home to the San peoples, Basara. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that. Among the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, whose knowledge systems, language, and traditions offer insight into early human history. Botswana's governance has long emphasized dialogue through the Kgotla system, Kgotla, Gotla, Kgotla system, consensus based decision making, and political stability. These cultural foundations, community, continuity, and restraint have played a quiet but important role in shaping the nation's social cohesion and democratic resilience. In recent global attention, Botswana entered popular conversation through the visit of IShowSpeed, whose trip highlighted both the country's beauty and the unexpected realities of its diamond economy. His surprise at learning that diamonds mined in Botswana are not freely sold to locals or tourists sparked wider discussion about global value chains, ownership, and perception. In this moment, Botswana once again became a living case study, showing how history, economics, culture, and modern media intersect to reveal deeper truths about where value is created. All right, so there is a reasoning behind why these are not sold, which I know he's tapped into. I just wanted to elaborate on this. Again, there's a lot of wisdom in IShowSpeed's tour in Africa, and I want to extract as much diamond and gold from these visits as possible. You know, when you're a famous streamer and you have managers and you have people who are investing in you, they have certain rigid timelines that they have to fit into in these live recordings, so they may not be able to go into detail as much around some of the history, around some of the knowledge and the information. So Botswana's decision to export its diamonds through external markets rather than distribute them internally was driven by, first, structural realities at independence, not by an absence of national ambition. When diamonds were discovered in 1967, Botswana was one of the poorest countries in the world with minimal infrastructure, a tiny scaled labor force, no cutting and polishing industry, and no access to global luxury markets. Exporting rough diamonds through established international channels allowed Botswana to immediately convert underground resources into a stable foreign exchange, which was essential for building roads, schools, healthcare systems, and state institutions. So Botswana isn't just exporting diamonds for nothing. The resources are being redirected back into the community, which I thought was just really genius. So it says here, development economists often cite Botswana as an exception in Africa because diamond revenues were transparently managed and reinvested into public goods rather than lost to corruption or capital flight. Operating through long term export contracts also reduced volatility and risk. The global diamond market is highly sensitive to demand cycles, speculation, and price shocks. By partnering with De Beers through the 50-50 joint venture Depswana. Botswana gained predictable revenue streams. So this allowed them to have predictable revenue streams in a market where it kind of fluctuates, right? Depends on sort of like this wave or pattern of who needs diamonds, who wants diamonds, price chairs, and then there's a dip where okay, people are not really purchasing these, okay? Botswana gained predictable revenue streams, guaranteed buyers, and price stabilization mechanisms that insulated the national budget from sudden market collapses. This mattered because diamonds account for roughly 70 to 80% of export earnings and about a quarter to a third of GDP at their peak. An internal open market system without global demand access or branding power would not have generated comparable fiscal reliability in the year in the early decades of state building. From a development perspective, exporting rough diamonds was also a sequencing strategy, not a permanent endpoint. Botswana prioritized state capacity first, diversification second. Diamond revenues funded universal primary education, free healthcare, foreign reserves, and one of Africa's highest sovereign credit ratings. Only after securing macroeconomic stability did Botswana begin pushing downstream, relocating diamond sorting, valuation, and some cutting operations to Gaborone in the 2010s, and creating the state owned Kavango Diamond Company to take a larger share of sales. Okay, Botswana is very intelligent, very smart with how they're strategically trying to generate profit from a very unstable market and redirect these resources to the community. But there's some things behind the scenes as well. This reflects a gradual attempt to climb the value chain rather than an assumption that value addition could succeed immediately after independence. That said, the model is not free from critique. While it was not primarily driven by greed or self sabotage, it did lock Botswana into a global commodity system shaped by colonial era power asymmetries, where branding, finance, and luxury retail remained dominated by Western and Asian markets. This limited broad based private ownership of diamond assets among citizens and constrained entrepreneurial participation. Economists increasingly argue that while Botswana avoided the classic resource curse, it still faces a structural ceiling unless it accelerates diversification and domestic value creation. In this sense, the export model was a rational and historically constrained choice that delivers stability and growth, but one that now requires evolution as the country seeks a post diamond future. All right. So, Botswana's integration into the global diamond trade placed it within a commodity system that was largely designed before African independence, during an era when colonial powers controlled extraction, shipping routes, finance, and consumer markets. The modern diamond economy did not emerge organically from producer countries. It was structured around European commercial hubs and imperial trade logic. Companies such as De Beers established centralized control over supply and distribution in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ensuring that raw diamonds flowed outward from Africa while pricing, marketing, and narrative control remained external. Botswana entered this system decades later, inheriting rules that prioritize export of raw materials over domestic transformation. Within this structure, branding power sits almost entirely outside producer nations. The highest value in the diamond industry is not created at the mining stage, but at the branding and retail stage, where diamonds are associated with love, status, permanence, and luxury. These meanings are cultivated through advertising, fashion houses, and financial storytelling centered in Western and Asian consumer markets. Cities such as Antwerp, London, and Mumbai became symbolic and practical centers of diamond legitimacy. Botswana, despite being the source of the stone, historically had little influence over how diamonds were branded, priced, or culturally positioned in the global imagination. Financial dominance further reinforces these asymmetries. Diamond pricing benchmarks, access to credit, insurance, and risk hedging are controlled through institutions and markets outside of Africa. Large trading houses and luxury conglomerates have the capital to absorb market fluctuations, stockpile inventory, and negotiate favorable terms, advantages that producer nations and local entrepreneurs rarely possess. As a result, Botswana's diamonds enter a value chain where financial leverage accumulates downstream, allowing profits to multiply far beyond what is captured at the extraction level, even when the state secures royalties and joint venture dividends. The system does not imply passivity or incompetence on Botswana's part, but it does illustrate how structural power operates independently of intent. Even a well governed state can be constrained when the most lucrative segments of an industry, branding, finance, and retail, are geographically and institutionally distant. Botswana's recent efforts to increase its share of diamond sales, relocate sorting operations, and expand domestic value addition reflect an attempt to renegotiate these inherited constraints. Still, the legacy of colonial era commodity design continues to shape where value accumulates, reminding observers that ownership of a resource does not automatically translate into control over the system that defines its worth. One of the clearest lessons from Botswana's experience is that value is rarely located where a product originates. The diamond's physical properties, carbon, hardness, rarity, are not what makes it worth tens of thousands of dollars. Its value multiplies only after it passes through stories, symbols, and meanings assigned by distant markets. This reveals a deeper truth. Markets do not merely reward what is extracted or produced, they reward what is imagined. The power in the imagination and the value in the imagination and storytelling and marketing is, if not more powerful than the particular object you're describing. Sign needs to be attended to. It needs to be really paid attention to. The value of the diamond from the earth is not as valuable as the narrative around the diamond in the markets. Okay. So sometimes you got to look at the value in your imagination as being greater than the value you're placing in your conditions, in your circumstances. Your conditions or circumstances are like that raw diamond, right? Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're having a difficult day, but it's what you're telling yourself. It's what you're marketing to yourself. It's the story that you're telling yourself that holds the greater weight, just like the diamond, all right? So it says here, and this video isn't for everybody. I'm not doing this for, you know, views or anything like that. Just education. So, I'm mindful that this probably you guys probably don't care about this. So this reveals a deeper truth. Markets do not merely reward what is extracted or produced, they reward what is imagined. The moment a product becomes associated with identity, status, permanence, or love, its price detaches from its material reality. What people pay for is not the object itself, but what owning it says about who they are. A second lesson is that psychology is a form of infrastructure. Roads, mines, and factories matter, but so do narratives, branding, and belief systems. The most powerful actors in global markets are not often those who control the raw material, but those who control perception, who defines what is luxury, what is rare, what is essential, and what is aspirational. Once a market internalizes those meanings, demand becomes self reinforcing. This explains why downstream industries, branding, finance, retail, capture disproportionate value. They operate in the human mind, not on the ground. And minds, unlike minds, scale infinitely. The final lesson is both cautionary and empowering. Value creation is learned behavior, not an inherent privilege. If value can be imagined, then it can also be reimagined. Individuals, communities, and nations that focus only on production risk remaining price takers, while those who invest in narrative, identity, and positioning become price makers. The implication is uncomfortable but liberating. Economic power is not just about what you have, but about how you frame it. Those who understand this stop asking only, what do we produce, and begin asking, what meaning does this hold? And who gets to decide? So this is so important. Um, and this is why I'm going to keep talking about Black history, Black excellence, Black contribution,